So we're going to start adding in some banks to your YNAB. There's a couple of ways that you can do this, either linked or unlinked. I would recommend using linked bank accounts. Reason being is it downloads transactions automatically overnight. I've had pretty good luck with most of the banks that I work with as far as the connection between the bank and YNAB. So I would recommend using linked accounts. I'm going to show you how to add linked accounts for now. I will talk about in another video using manual importing of transactions in situations where you might want to do that, or adding manual transactions, or reviewing unsupported banks. Some smaller banks, credit unions, things like that. Sometimes it doesn't play nice between YNAB and the back-end aggregator and the bank. I found them to be pretty rare, but it does happen. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So in order to add an account, you're just going to come to the left-hand panel. You're going to click where it says Add Account. It's going to pop up and ask you if you want to do a linked or an unlinked bank account. We're going to go through and do a linked bank account. So I'm going to click on Linked. It's going to pop up. There's no connections here. What we'll end up having is we'll have a connection to a bank, and if you have multiple accounts there, you'll just click on each account in order to add it. I'll show you that here in just a second. So we're going to add a connection. YNAB uses Plaid as their back-end aggregator. Plaid's actually a pretty big company now. They do a lot of back-end aggregation. They do a lot of payments. It's pretty big. It's gotten pretty big as far as the back-end aggregator world. They used to use a different service. Plaid bought them, so they just started using Plaid, I think, in the last few weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and hit agree. You'll see it'll list some of the bigger banks here at first. If your bank is not listed here, which the one that I'm going to use is not listed here, you can type it up here in the search bar and look for the bank that you're going to use. I'm going to use Ally Bank for this demo, so I'm going to click Ally Bank. I'm going to put in my username, add in my password here. Just 1 second. It's going to do its thing, so we'll wait while it's doing this. It's going to want to send me a text message for two-factor identification. So I'll go ahead and put that in here so I get it. I hit submit. Your experience may be different. Some banks require that, some don't. I find that most of them do now, but you may not get a code. They may want to email it to you. Each bank's going to be a little bit different. So we got the account connected here. So I'm going to hit next. It's going to pop up in this next panel. Again, it lists the two banks. So I'm going to end up adding in both of these, but I'm going to go ahead and add in the checking for now. It's going to ask me, what kind of account are you adding? It's a checking account. It is going to give you a few different types of accounts. So typically, you're going to be adding in a checking, a savings. I don't use a cash account very much. This would only be in case if you have a cash account that you're using, like cash in a shoebox or something. It's really going to be an unsupported account. I don't know. Perhaps there's another reason why you'd be using this. I'm not sure. But usually you're going to use a checking, a savings, or a credit card are the ones you're mostly going to be using. And what I would suggest using. You can have tracking accounts which don't actually factor into your budget. So if you want to have something on the side, say you owe money to someone, or you want to keep track of that, or you have an outside account that you want to keep track of just the balance. It is going to be outside the system money, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. But for now, we're just going to be adding in this, what I would call cash flow accounts. So first, I'm going to add a checking account. I'm going to give it a nickname. I'm just going to name it, let's say Jack's Checking. And next. It's going to add it in. Now, if I want to go back and add that savings account or another account, I can just hit add another account. It'll pop up, give me that online savings account that I can add, and I'm going to go ahead and hit that. Same thing, what type of account? In this case, it's a savings account. Again, I'm going to give it a nickname. I'm just going to call this Jack's Savings. And hit next. And that's it. I don't have any more accounts to add for that bank, so I'm just going to hit done. So now I've added accounts. Like I told you in the other video, it's going to kind of bop you through these little steps at the top, so I'm going to go ahead and hit let's go. For now, I'm going to probably just skip through some of these. So now I have 2 accounts loaded in. I have my checking account and my savings account loaded in. For now, there's no money in these accounts. I'm going to add some things to these so I can show you how to work with adding transactions. But for now, I have my 2 accounts added in and linked up. This sidebar here, you'll see that it's a good connection. So if there's a check mark here, you can hover over it and it will tell you that it's a good connection. When's the last time it was updated? Normally, it's going to be like overnight. Some banks will update midday, but most of them do it once a day, overnight. So you'll see this. There will be times when you'll have something different here. So you can have a couple of things. You can have an exclamation point, which means it needs attention. If you click on it, it will tell you what you need to do. There are certain banks that want you to reauthorize really every day. I know Capital One does that, so you have to reauthorize every day. If you click it, go through, they'll send you a new code. You put the new code in, and you have to reauthorize it every time. Every bank is different. It's going to depend. Periodically, they'll be doing back-end maintenance, so sometimes these connections will be delayed. You'll hover over this, and it'll say connection delayed. Just be patient. They're working on the connection. As I mentioned, I've found that these have been pretty good. I don't have a lot of issues with it. The only one I have a consistent issue with is Capital One, if you use that. But at the same time, I haven't used every bank out there. So, but Capital One's pretty popular. So chances are somebody's going to be using a Capital One bank or a credit card, I would suppose. So you may get a situation where you have to just reauthorize it overnight. We'll talk a little bit about resources in case these things do get broken and you're having trouble getting them fixed, and using some of the YNAB resources and the YNAB customer service to help you with that. They've been pretty helpful. But just want to check these and make sure these connections are good. Once we have some transactions in here, I'll show you this, but you'll have also buttons that will show up over here. If you ever want to edit one of these, you can hit this, looks like a pen and a pad. If you click this pen and a pad, it'll pop up. You can change the name. If you wanted to add some notes about the account, you can, in case it's something one-off or some kind of notes you just want to remind yourself of. You can unlink it if you want to unlink it, and then you can put today's balance. If you put anything here, it will go ahead and update it. So it'll make an adjustment to your budget in order for you to update it. I'm going to go through a little bit of that when we go through reconciling accounts and making sure that your balances match. But if you click on the edit, you can do this. You can delete it, these kinds of things. So that's that. Same thing with the savings. So now you have 2 accounts in here. This is just checking and savings. So we're going to just focus on that for now. In the next video, I'll show you how to add a credit card.